Hello, 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 and welcome to the Hope for Prisoners Tuesday Night Huddle Up. I am Jon Ponder, founder and CEO of Hope for Prisoners, and we are so glad that you have joined us here tonight. Man, you guys are in for an absolute treat tonight. We have my dear friend, Lewis Reed. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about him in a little bit. But thank you guys so much for joining. Want to say hello to all of our friends over in Nevada Department of Corrections. Can we give them a big, gigantic round of applause? And then our friends over in the Clark County Detention Center, the City of Las Vegas Detention Center. Can we give them a big, gigantic round of applause? Want to say hello to all our friends that are watching on the Hope for Prisoners Facebook Live and Hope for Prisoners YouTube from all over the world. Can we give it up for them as well, please? And then, of course, for all of you that are gathered here in the Hope for Prisoners, Billy Walters Center for Second Chances. Thank you guys for joining us here tonight. Give yourselves a big, gigantic round of applause. Hey, so we got a whole lot of ground that we need to cover. But as you guys know, this is the month of second chances. Two things I want to tell you guys about. On Thursday night, we are going to have a huddle up in the park, and all of you invited. Those of you who are inside Nevada Department of Corrections, Gene Camp. I know we have 3 lakes that's going to come. We're going to bus you guys out to the park. We're going to have a big barbecue, jumpy houses, and dunk tanks, and you're going to be able to bring your families out. Isn't that just awesome and amazing? The ladies at Gene Camp better be, woo! It's going to be at Lorenzi Park, located at 333 West Washington. And then the other big, gigantic event we're going to be having here as part of the month of second chances is we're going to have our second chance hiring event right here at 333 North Rancho. I believe it's from 9 until 12. But we got lots of our second chance employers that are coming out. So if you are unemployed or underemployed and looking for a better opportunity, please make sure that you are in attendance. Go to our website at hopeforprisoners.org if you need some more information. Hey, so before we get going, I want to open it up in a Hope for Prisoners fashion, that if you have any testimonies you'd like to share, maybe somebody's got some gigantic opportunity for a job, or you have overcome something in your life. You may have some clean time under your belt, like this guy right here who's got 19 years clean and sober. Man, you're supposed to be celebrating. But I'll open it up to you here in the room. If you're at Casa Grande, let Jerry Howell know. If you're over at Gene Camp, please let Gloria know. If you're watching Facebook Live, you want to give popcorn testimonies of something that you want to share with us to encourage. Going once, going twice. Well, it looks like everybody is all ready to go. You guys are in for an absolute treat tonight. I want you to look at the person next to you and say, get ready. No, you got to say it like I mean it. Say, get ready. Say, this is going to be good. Before I introduce our speaker, we're going to open up as we normally do in prayer before I read the bio of Mr. Lewis Reed. And I promise you guys are in for an absolute treat. Right? So, Father, we just come before you this evening in the name of Jesus, God. Just thank you for being the magnificent, wonderful God that you are. We thank you for the things you do, the things you've done, and everything that your word promises that you will do. God, we invite you into the midst of our huddle up, God. As we huddle up together, God, we ask that you come huddle up with us, God. We lift up our speaker on this evening, God, and we ask you to illuminate every gift, talent, and ability that he is going to share with us on this evening, God. Let the testimony that you have worked in him, God, let him work it out on this evening. In Jesus' magnificent name, we say amen. Amen. All right. So listen, I'm going to read the bio of one of the greatest comeback kids. Say, we're the home of the comeback kids. We're the home of the comeback kids. But I'll tell you, one of the greatest comeback kid stories literally in the nation, as I'm talking about my dear friend, Mr. Lewis Reed. So Lewis L. Reed is one of the country's leading figures in the fields of social impact. Reed has years of experience and expertise in government, criminal justice reform, policy advocacy, and public health. Having spent nearly 14 years in a federal prison and several years on supervision, his leadership led to the passage of more than 30 state and federal level bills, including the historic First Step Act in 2018. Reed's public policy outcomes have created a pathway to freedom for more than 650,000 people affected by the criminal justice system. Previously, Reed served as the senior director of strategic partnership for Jay-Z's Reform Alliance and as director of membership and organizing for Dream Corps, formerly known as Cut 50, co-founded by Van Jones and Jessica Jackson. He has conceptualized and implemented Connecticut's first government-based reentry office in the city of Bridgeport, replicating the model in several major cities and receiving a U.S. Conference of Mayors Award for best practice. Reed is the founder and principal creator of Decode Story Lab, a documentary film production company. He is also an award-winning author, a commentator on Law and Crime Network, a licensed board-certified addiction practitioner, and consults in the criminal justice reform. He is also the host of Illmatic podcast, Surviving Beats, Overcoming Breaks, featured in the Amazon First Step documentary, and is a consulting producer on Hulu's Unprisoned series starring Kerry Washington and Delroy Lindo, and is starring in 2024 Nas executive produced documentary titled When Does Freedom Begin? As an award-winning author, two-time TEDx speaker on PTSD, prison traumatic stress disorder, CCJ's trustee, and board certified licensed addiction practitioner. He is LA Weekly's 2023 top 5 people to follow. He has won various other recognitions and awards. If you guys are, please put your hands together and give him a warm Hope for Prisoners Huddle Up welcome for Mr. Louis Reed. Mr. Reed, welcome to the Huddle Up.
My brother, it's good to be on with you, man. And it's also good to be on with everybody in the very, very sunny and hot state of Nevada. I can't tell you how ecstatic I am just to be having this conversation with you this evening. And, you know, one of the most uncomfortable things for a person to do is sit through the reading of their bio. You kind of like, man, I did all of that. When does it end? But I'm grateful to be on, and I'm happy. You know, just to be in a space with everyone this evening. In terms of, you know, some of what I wanted to discuss with you tonight, with our viewing audience, both virtually, in person, on social media, etc. I want to talk about the notion of redemption. I want to talk about the notion of hope. I want to talk about the notion of new opportunity. I know that this month is Second Chance Month, and the 23rd through the 28th of this month, we celebrate National Reentry Week. But the notion of second chances is not something that should be relegated to people who are justice impacted. Because truth be told, some of us, if not all of us, who are probably listening to this broadcast or watching it, whatever your method of technology may be, truth be told, none of us got a first chance. What do I mean by what do I mean when I say none of us got a first chance? I'm glad that you asked that question. Let's take my life, for example. Both of my parents were incarcerated when I was 5 years old. I was raised by my maternal grandmother. When I'm 13 years old, my sister is shot in her face, loses her eye by her then boyfriend, who she subsequently has a child with 2 years later. But the story doesn't end there. When I'm 14 years old, I'm shot, critically injured in my chest. I have a bullet in between my heart and my spine, and I have to relearn how to walk. When I was shot, there was no trauma a therapist to respond to my crises, nor did my sister receive the same. But the story doesn't stop there. When I'm 15 years old, I have a friend who I was involved in illegal activities with, who was 25. He was shot in his face and head 6 times, fatally wounded, literally right in front of me. But the story doesn't stop there. When I'm 16 years old, my 16-year-old cousin is shot 32 times in front of his mother, my aunt. And he succumbed to those injuries as well. Not to mention all of the other trauma that I was exposed to that time does not permit us to tell, up until the point in time when I'm approximately 22, 23 years old, and I'm sentenced to a term of imprisonment of 16 years. So when you look at my life in particular, and I'm not saying that I wasn't responsible for my outcomes, but when did I have a starting chance? When what did I have the opportunity to have a springboard to success? Whereas coming out the gate, it felt like I experienced trapdoors to failure. Let me say this one more time for the people in the back, in the event you did not hear that the first time. When did I have the opportunity to have a springboard to success? At 5 years old, when both of my parents were taken away from me, rather than feeling like I had a trapdoor to failure. And so when I was incarcerated, there was one of several things that happened with me. First and foremost, the first 3 to 5 years of my incarceration was extremely turbulent. I was functioning from the notion that not that I didn't deserve to be incarcerated, but I didn't deserve the amount of time that I had. So I was functioning from a space from a deficit. I had a chip on my shoulder. So the first 3 to 5 years were turbulent. Then one of three things happened with me. First and foremost, I had a spiritual transformation. Unapologetically, I am a believer in the death, burial, resurrection, and second coming of Jesus Christ. The A clause to that first thing that happened with me is that I began to look at Jesus a little bit different. Yes, I understand how I understood the gospel of Christ from a redemption perspective, but I also started looking at Jesus from a revolutionary perspective. What does revolutionary Jesus look like? What does radical Jesus look like? I started looking at Jesus from the perspective as to where Jesus was a disruptor. He was an activist. He was an organizer. Well, Lewis, how do you say that? I don't see the word disruptor. I don't see the word organizer. I don't see the word activist in any of the Gospels. I don't see that in the Old Testament. Where do you get that from? I'm glad that you asked that question, because here's what he did. Jesus was the type of person who would say to someone who asked him an asinine question, he would say, on the day of judgment, you aren't going to be evaluated by how many social media likes you have. You're not going to be evaluated by how many followers you got. You're not going to be evaluated by how many push-ups you can do or how many pull-ups you can do if you are currently in. You ain't going to be evaluated if you got more degrees than a thermometer. Sorry, ladies, you're not even going to be evaluated if you got hair that flows all the way down to the floor like Rapunzel. You ain't going to be evaluated by none of that stuff. He said that one of the criteria that you would be evaluated by is if you saw people who were in prison and you were in service to them. So in effect, he was saying everything that you do should be in honor to God, but in service to other people. And there is no people in society who is more disenfranchised, who's locked out of opportunities, who's locked up and forgotten about than those who are in prison. And I don't necessarily mean in physical captivity. I'm talking about those of us who are having this conversation right now with one another. Though the more than 70 million people in the United States of America who have criminal histories. You've served your time. You have made parole. You may even be off probation. Your term of supervision has ended, but yet and still you can't get a job. In some states, you can't even get life insurance because the life insurance company can arbitrarily deny you life insurance if you have a felony conviction that has nothing to do with insurance fraud whatsoever. But it doesn't stop there. In some states, you can't even have access to certain social services. Let's not talk about higher education. And if you have a drug charge, because the federal government says that if you have certain drug offenses, you can't even qualify for certain student loans. Now let's talk about housing. Where are you going to live at? They don't want you jeopardizing your family members' subsidized a housing voucher. But then they don't want to give you a housing voucher. And so we got to think about the collateral consequences. The American Bar Association says there are more than 46,000 collateral consequences to one felony conviction. That means that there are 46,000 odds against you to fail. And so Jesus was the type of person where he disrupted that. He stood 2 millennia ago and looked down the corridors of time. And he said, if you really are going to make an impact in this world, and if you really want to be something, he said, I don't want you to forget about those who are left behind. But he didn't stop there in terms of his disruption of the criminal legal system. You think about this. If Jesus lived in 2024, he was convicted for a misdemeanor offense, received capital punishment. And even when he was on the cross, he was disrupting the Roman established judiciary, so to speak. He was praying for people. He was even telling other people that was convicted, don't worry about this. Today, you're going to get a pardon. And so when I was incarcerated and I saw Jesus from a revolutionary perspective, I said, this cat is somebody by whom I want to pattern my advocacy after. I want to be a systems disruptor. The second thing that happened with me is that I got a little bit of an education. That's how we say it in Bridgeport, Connecticut, where I'm from. I got a little bit of education. And those education keys unlocked opportunities for me to be able to accurately and more intelligently express the ideas that I had in my mind. And last but not least, I discovered this notion. And that notion was those closest to the problem are closest to the solution, but often furthest from resources and power. Let me say that one more time. In the event, if we're streaming with Cricket Wireless and the connection wasn't good, those closest to the problem are closest to the solution, but often furthest from resources and power. And I wanted to bridge that gap. I wanted to be the person who is going to stand in the middle and take the people who I knew who have been impacted by the issue. People like my mother, people like my father, people like myself, people like Jon Ponder, whose leadership I can't speak enough about. Actually, let me digress from the aforementioned just to brag a little bit about Jon Ponder because he's too modest to brag about himself. You heard Jon in his introduction of me talking about the First Step Act. To date, under that one bill, we got more than 30,000 people released from federal prison. You can cue a round of applause. I'm not in the room with you, but you can cue a round of applause. 30,000 people released under one bill. What you may not know is that Jon was a very, very, very integral part of us being able to organize and us being able to bring people close together and us being able to have people in the state of Nevada, elected officials, law enforcement, grassroots organizers, CEOs, principals of all kinds, etc. We don't win the First Step Act without going through Nevada. And Jon Ponder was the conduit, I should say, and he was the person who actually helped us convince people in the state of Nevada that the First Step Act on a federal level was something that needed to get passed. And I can't speak enough about his leadership, and I can't speak enough about how integral he is as a person. But back to the above. So I wanted to bridge that gap, and I wanted to bridge that gap through my advocacy. I wanted to bridge that gap through my organizing. I wanted to bridge that gap through my life experience. And so I began to do that. And so as you heard Jon articulate, I initially came home, I springboarded my career in human services. From there, I went on to do social work. From there, I convinced the largest city in the state of Connecticut that they needed a government office for reentry affairs. Government office for reentry affairs. Not only did I convince them that they needed a government office for reentry affairs, but I also convinced them that I was the best man for the job. And so I was in that position for approximately 2 years. We replicated the model throughout the country. And then, in part, I was rearrested for child support arrears that accrued while I was incarcerated. I slipped into a clinical depression. I had a suicidal ideation. I did not know how I was going to reinvent myself. But when I was laying in the backseat of my SUV and I had composed text messages to people who were close to me, and I was about to take some over-the-counter sleep aids, there was a still small voice that I heard from the book of Micah. And it said, "Rejoice not against me, my enemies. For when I sit in darkness, the Lord shall be a light unto me. When I fall, I shall rise again." Talking about redemption. When I fall, I shall rise again. There's something about the setback that only God can facilitate the greatest comeback of your life. Think about this. When you conjure to mind every person that you probably have been influenced by or inspired by, whether it's Mahatma Gandhi, whether it's Dr. King, whether it's Jesus, whether it's the Apostle Paul, whether it's King David, whether it's Jay-Z, whether it's Beyonce, doesn't matter who it is. Everybody in their life had a setback. And it's because of the setbacks that allow you to appreciate the comebacks even that much more. Rejoice not against me, all my enemies. For when I, oops, see that? That was nothing but the devil. Hold up. There we go, I'm back. See, when I sit in darkness, the Lord shall be a light unto me. But no matter what type of setbacks that you had, it's only because of the setbacks that you have the sweetness of the comebacks. And so for me, when I was able to reposition myself, when I heard that still small voice and I responded to it, I said to myself, there's more for me. I didn't know where that more was going to come from. I didn't know how long it was going to take me to get to that more. But I knew that there was another opportunity for me, just like there's another opportunity for you. It doesn't matter. Let me also share something else with you. When I came home from incarceration, I went on approximately 40 to 50 job interviews before I landed my first one. I became a professional job interviewer before I landed my first one. Some of you might be working a job. Some of you might be pivoting into a career. Some of you may have gone on your 31st job interview. Let me tell you something. There's more for you. There's more, literally more for you. And so I was recruited by Van Jones to be his national organizer, where Jon and I, our lives intersected. From there, I was elevated to be an executive at his organization. And then when Jay-Z, Meek Mill, Robert Kraft, Michael Rubin, Robert F. Smith decided to start an organization called Reform Alliance, and Van Jones went over to be the CEO, I went over there as well as one of the senior executives. But my story didn't end there. I was there, passed a bunch of bills, was able to support the leadership there and get some people free. And my grandmama used to say something. She used to say, your ceiling on this level needs to be the floor that you stand on the next level. Again, your ceiling on this level should be the floor that you stand on the next level. And so what does that mean? That means that even though you land the job, even though you land the position, that should not be good enough for you. Because last time I checked the gospel was about leveling up. It was about challenging us to level up. What does level up mean? It means that the moment that you land a position, the moment that you land a job, the moment that you land a career, the moment that you understand how to work in the position fluently, that you can speak to whatever the skill set that they hired you to do intelligently, and you master that thing, you need to be looking for a new level to stand on. You need to be looking for what the promotion looks like. You need to be looking for how to advance and elevate your career. This is what redemption is about. Redemption is not necessarily about other people giving us an opportunity. Redemption is about us giving ourselves the opportunity, us signing our own emancipation proclamation, us freeing ourselves from the guilt. Yes, I haven't been there for and with my children for 14 years. I missed 14 birthdays. I missed 14 Christmases. I missed 14 other milestones in their lives. And sometimes when you've been just as impacted, and sometimes when you haven't been in their lives, maybe you've been absent because of substance abuse. Maybe you've been absent for your own trauma. I don't know what that is. But the first thing that you have to do in order to be able to experience what redemption looks like is that you have to allow yourself to be redeemed. You got to allow yourself to, in effect, say that, hey, I did it, but I'm not it. I may have made some poor decisions, but these poor decisions do not define the sum total of who I am as a human being. That's the first notion that you got to get in your mind. The second thing is that you got to be able to accept redemption, not just from God, but you got to be able to accept redemption from other people. Sometimes we self-sabotage. Sometimes we don't dress up for the part. Man, oh, this is going to be another rejection anyways. So we show up to the interview late. We show up not dressed in our best. Or if we're on time and we're dressed in our best, our attitude is not the best version of ourselves. Maybe the bus didn't run as scheduled, or whatever the other circumstances are that are ancillary to how to us showing up for that particular position. We have to get out of this notion of self-sabotage. We got to get out of it. If there's another point that I want to impart on you, is this: you have to understand not just what redemption is, but you also have to understand what reconciliation is. Reconciliation, and quite honestly, reconciliation is an accounting term. To reconcile something means to bring something into order or try to make it appropriate as best as possible. It's an accounting term. You reconcile books, you reconcile invoices. And so you have to allow not just yourself to be reconciled, but you also have to understand what reconciliation may look like for you. There's a book that is called How You Do Anything is How You Do Everything. And quite honestly, just because it's us and we family, and probably about 10,000 Facebook viewers on, I want to be very transparent with you. I talked about being and working for some very prestigious people and doing some great work. But I came to a point in my career and also came to a point in my life where I was making poor decisions. When I came home, my father was murdered. He was a victim of circumstance about 2.5 years ago. He was coming out of an ATM. He was Muslim, on his way to Juma. Guy asked him for a few dollars. My father said he didn't have it. Ordinarily, my dad would give this guy money. The guy hit my dad in the back of the head with a brick and robbed him. My father was 80 years old. And for 2 weeks, my father fought for his life. And then ultimately, he succumbed to those injuries. Almost a year to the day that my father passed away, my sister passed away. She left us two children to raise. She passed away from an asthma attack exacerbated by COVID. And after that, immediately after that, I also experienced 4 other people who were in my life who passed away. One of which I was on a meeting, and maybe about 2 hours later, his wife called me and told me that he had a massive heart attack and passed away. And I checked myself into a mental health treatment center specializing in grief and bereavement in the state of Florida. And while I was out there, I read this book. It's a workbook. It's not something that you read, it's something that you do. I ordered this book, and the name of the book is called How You Do Anything is How You Do Everything. In the first page in the book, it was just a box. And at the top of the book, it asks a question. I say ask. That's how Black folks say it. It asks a question. I'm working on my enunciation. But it asks a question. It says, draw a picture of your life right now. And for a number of weeks, I wasn't able to draw a picture of my life because I went through all of these different mental gymnastics. What if I drew a picture of my life and somebody got it? My family members, they got it, and they saw a negative reflection of themselves. What would they say about it? And so ultimately, I said to myself, suppose I go through this entire workbook I do it, and then I burn it afterwards. And nobody sees it. Who am I really doing this for? Am I doing this for other people? Or am I doing this for myself? So mental health was not just premium for me during the 6 weeks that I was away and I was there, but also reconciling my life, my present with my past, and also with my future. Giving myself permission, giving myself a license to be human, not to just to be the criminal justice reform guy, not just to be the father, not just to be like any of these, just to be human and understand that in being human, there is a complexity that's involved in humanity. And so I begin to reconcile that. I begin to give myself some grace. I begin to give myself a quote unquote second chance. Begin to give myself a little bit more mercy. Begin to be a little bit more gentle with myself. And I want to encourage you to be gentle with yourself. You need to understand what reconciliation may mean. That may mean a conversation with someone else. It may mean saying, I'm sorry. It may mean writing a letter to someone who have since passed on or whom the relationship is no longer active with. I don't know what reconciliation may look like for you, but you should be thinking about that. And the third thing that I want to leave you with is this. Talked about redemption, talked about reconciliation, but also I want to remind you of what restoration means. Restoration means being put back into a place where you once fell out of. Restore. For some of you mechanics, you might appreciate this. You might restore a vehicle, or you might restore some furniture for you furniture enthusiasts. Restoration, in effect, means to make new over again, which once was new but is now old, to make it new over again. You're restoring something. What does restoration look like for you? What needs to be new in your life? What friends do you need to distance yourself away from? What people do you need to bring closer to you? What does reconciliation mean and look like for you? I can tell you, for me, it means looking at a newer version of myself every single day while still accepting the outdated version of myself. It's almost like you having an iPhone. Same phone, but if they came out with a software update tonight and I downloaded the software update, it's going to function differently. The software is going to function differently. Same phone, i.e. yesterday, but the software update is going to restore how it wasn't functioning as well as before. And so where am I at in life today? I am the executive vice president of an organization called the Frederick Douglass Project for Justice. And in effect, what we do is we take simple conversations with people who are on the outside, and we bring them into conversations with people who are currently incarcerated. And we don't talk about cases. We don't talk about how your baby mama left you for your best friend and all of these other things. We don't talk about none of that stuff. We talk about human points of connection. We may ask a question like, if you were to go back in time and invent something, what would that invention be and how would it serve other people? And we put people in a small group and we let them ideate around that. They discuss it, and then they come back to the larger group and they report out on what it is that they would do. It's a version of that. And then at the end, in effect, what we do is we ask people, what is it that you have in common with one other person in this room as a result of coming in here tonight, as a result of having these conversations? And the conversations are literally life-changing. It's magical. And that's what we do. It's the simplicity of human connection with community and having a conversation that literally transforms hearts and minds. And so when I think about the transformation of hearts and minds in the context of tonight, I'm thinking about people like you, people who are brilliant, people who have genius, people who have untapped potential, You're just bursting at the seams, waiting for somebody to give you the opportunity. Let me tell you something. There's a difference between being ready and being prepared. All of you, the people who are watching, you know who I'm talking to. Those of you who have been in the basement of hell, in a corner, in a closet that was locked with one of them, and you were chained to the furnace. You know what it's like to be overlooked and undervalued. You know what it's like to be forgotten about, but you survived it. You survived it. And there's a difference between being ready for something and being prepared for it. Every single day that you wake up, you need to be prepared for what that day brings. Everybody's ready to win the Powerball. Not everybody's prepared with all of the drama that comes with it. The cousins that come out of the woodwork, the people that you ain't talked to in years, all of the drama that comes. Nobody's prepared for that. Everybody's ready to win it, but nobody's prepared for it. Everybody was ready to go home from prison when we were in, but not a lot of people were prepared for it. So I want to leave you with this. I want to close with this, and then I want to open the floor up for some questions, comments, concerns, critique, feedback, etc. But I want to challenge and charge you with this. Are you really prepared for redemption? Are you really prepared for reconciliation? And are you really prepared, or I should say, are you really prepared for restoration? It's not a question that I can answer for you. I've answered it for myself, and that's ever evolving for me. But I want to challenge you to think about what that looks like for you. Jon Ponder, bring you back in, bring you back up.
Goodness, my goodness. Was that some good stuff? My goodness, it was fire. Everybody said that was fire. See, this is the reason why I tell you that this is one of the greatest leaders, one of the greatest comeback kids in the history of our country. We're going to open it up for questions, comments right here in this room. Something that Louis Reed dropped in this room that resonated with you. If you are inside Nevada Department of Corrections, just make your way up to the front of the camera. Ladies out in Gene Camp, I'm going to encourage you. If you're on Facebook Live or watching somewhere around the world on Zoom, make sure you drop that comment or question in the chat, and Chad is monitoring that. So we'll start right here in the room. Something that Louis Reed had said, dropped in this room that kind of resonated with you.
Everybody don't run up all at once.
Yeah, I'm going to make my way to the back of the room over here. If you'll stand up, look in the camera right there. And you got to stand up. Come on, stand up. Tell us your name. You okay? Tell us your name. And what is that question, comment you might have?
My name is Risha, and I have a comment about reconciliation.
Sure.
I'm working on that in my life, basically.
Okay.
Wait, let me. But before you go, what does working on that in your life look like?
It looks like I'm working, but I'm trying to better the job that I'm working on now. I'm grateful that I have a job, but I want a better job. So
yeah. Let me tell you something. And I think that this is going to be for the benefit of everybody else. Thank you for that. I want to respond to that, John, if I may.
Yes, please.
Master the art of the pivot. Master the art of the pivot. What is the pivot? I don't know if you guys have watched the NCAA basketball tournament, but in basketball terms, when you catch a ball, you can plant one foot. That's considered your pivot foot. You can plant one foot and you can jab with the other. So that means that one foot has to stay still, but your jab is that you can move. You can figure out how you can get to the basket. You might do a head fake or something to that degree, right? Your pivot foot in life, those are the things that are immovable. You know that you need a job. You know that you need housing. You know that you need food, shelter, and the basic necessities of life. That's your pivot foot. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't jab. What does jab look like in translation of this conversation? The jab may look like you taking a certification course.
That's good.
A jab may look like you looking for another opportunity elsewhere while you maintain what it is that you have here. But you got to be able to master the art of the pivot. Life is about pivots. Nothing is going to be permanent. Nothing is going to be permanent. So master the art of the pivot.
That is so good. Give him a hand for that. Give him a hand for that. Now we're going to go inside Nevada Department of Corrections. Casa Grande, please step up. Tell us your name and what is that question or comment that you might have for Dr. Reed.
Hi, I'm Anna. I just wanted to thank you for reminding us to be gentle with ourselves while we're working on the redemption, the reconciliation, and the restoration, because a lot of times during that process, it's just really hard to not kind of tear yourself apart. So thank you for saying those wonderful words to help us on the right path for what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You know, I'm y'all don't have to applaud after every comment. This is not the Oprah Winfrey talk show. Not yet. But I want to remind you of something. When I came home from prison, everything was go, 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 go. You need a job. You need to stay on the straight and narrow. You need to do this. You need to do that. And I had gotten go mode so much and I was in motion so much that I realized that I wasn't gentle with myself. I wasn't being gentle with myself. And so you have to consider that many of us are functioning from a deficit. We got imposter syndrome. And so you're saying go, 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 go. And we feel like we're behind the eight ball and we need to put our foot on the life accelerator. But to what expense? At the expense of when my father is in the hospital for 2 weeks and I had just started a new job, even though I had relationships with the CEO and everybody else, I'm still working from my father's bedside, because I'm on go, 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 go. And so in your going, you need to be considerate of how you're stopping to pause, to breathe, to just in effect give yourself some grace.
Yeah, that is so good. Dr. Reed, we're going to go online right now.
Sure.
Michelle wanted to know, what advice would you give to help people get prepared?
Yeah, that's a great question, Michelle. So my advice, it depends on it depends on where you are in life. If you're talking about preparation from prison to get out of prison, the first thing that I would recommend is you got to shake the yard. And when I'm talking about shaking the yard, I'm talking about the people and the things that are familiar with you. You know, I was one of those people when I was criminal enterprising. I believed that $100 bills just did not spend in the state of Connecticut, which in effect meant that I was going to really work my network. And so you should have conversations with people who don't look like you, who have a diverse background other than yours, who may have degrees higher than your thermometer. You need to find a different circle to be with, to penetrate, to socialize with, and glean everything that you can from that person, from those people. That's the first thing. The second thing is that if you can't get formally educated, you need to really be thinking about what it is that you want to do and learn everything about that field, learn everything about that trade, rather than having your baby mamas sending you money so that you can get some honey buns and ho-hos. And honey buns and ho-hos are good, right? Like we love a good honey bun, especially with the peanut butter on top of it. We love that. But you should be saying to yourself, I want you to invest in my future. I want you to invest in my future. Send me a book, a dummies book. If you got a tablet in there, you need to be listening to podcasts.
Yes.
That are going to elevate your thinking. I'm not talking about the Hood podcast, and I got nothing against Wallow and Gilly. Those are the homies. But $1 million worth of game ain't necessarily going to help you be the next CEO or the first CEO of whatever enterprise that you are going to launch. You should be thinking about what coding looks like. How can you take a course in coding? You need to be thinking you need to be thinking disruptively. That is how you get prepared.
That is outstanding. You can clap. We are chatting with Louis Reed, Executive Vice President of Frederick Douglass Project for Justice. Open it up for any questions and comments. We're to come back here to the Billy Walters Center for Second Chances. If you would please stand up, look over in the camera right there. And what is that question, comment you might have for Louis Reed?
One thing that you had said during your speech was don't let what you've done define you. You need to let that go. Actually, this week, so background on me a little bit. My dad had went to prison for the rest of his life whenever I was 16 years old. And my son, who's young, he's very young, he asked me, do you love your dad? And I was like, well, yeah, I do. He's my dad. I love him. And he was like, well, how? How do you love him? Because I don't define my dad the way that I don't define my dad because of what he did to put himself where he's at. I define my dad because the dad that he was before he put himself where he is. So then it got to make me think, if I'm able to do that to myself or to my own dad, why can't I do it to myself?
Mm-hmm.
So just a little tidbit for anyone in the room that's.
Yeah. That is so good. Dr. Reed, I'm going to give you a chance to respond to that.
Well, look, thank you for that. And I appreciate your degree of vulnerability. I can hear, I can see, you know, your eyes getting misty. I can hear the quiver in your voice, and I can also see the sincerity of your heart. And I think that we need more people like you, just being honest, you know, and being transparent. And imagine what would happen if we had transparent conversations with people. Right? Like the reason why I don't do this is because of this. Imagine how much better we would be than how we were before. So I really do appreciate, that's the only comment that I really appreciate your authenticity in that.
That is awesome. Now, Louis Reed, we're going to go inside Nevada Department of Corrections. I know one of the ladies out in Gene Conservation Camp has a question, a comment. Please step up, tell us your name, and what is that question or comment you might have for Dr. Reed?
Okay. Hello. Hello, everybody. My name is Joni. Hello. Doctor, you have hit home with me. I've been waiting for this. I'm similar to you. I have lost my family, all of them, in different situations, and my twin brother to suicide. And a lot of people don't know this about me, but I'm alone in the world, and I'm here as a retired educator and trying to put my life back together. I've actually myself just been stumbling with redemption, reconciliation, and restoration, and you just hit the nails on the head for me. So what I really ask is, we are here in Gene right now. This camp is sort of in a holding pattern. There's no fire camp going on right now. A lot of us have lost our jobs. We're sitting, twiddling our thumbs. I am twiddling my thumbs. And I would ask how I can get the workbook about how you do everything, please.
Yeah, great question. So one of two things. I think that you said something that was operative, and I literally just finished talking to my son about this today. And if you can, whoever's operating the camera, I want you to keep the split screen up so that I can see them. Thank you. Keep it just like that, if you don't mind. I had a conversation with my son today, and you said an operative word that literally was lifted from the conversation that I had with my son today. You said that you're in a holding pattern. You know what a holding pattern means? That means that you're away from where you were and you're on your way to somewhere else. You just haven't gotten there yet. You're in the hallway of life. You're coming out of one place and you're going into between another place, and you're right in the middle. And if I know that you're too young to remember Michael Jackson, but Michael Jackson said you're too high to get over and you're too low to get under. You stuck right in the middle. That's what being in the holding pattern is about, right? Being in the middle. So while you're in the middle, what do you do while you wait? What do you do while you wait? Well, number one, I can connect with Jon and see how we can get that book into you guys into the facility. That's number one. The second thing is that if you don't have well, I'm gonna connect with Jon. We'll see what we can do about it. The second thing is this. And if we can't get that book, I'll make sure I get you guys a copy of my book. I can guarantee that. I'll make sure that I send Jon a copy of my book, or we'll get your addresses, and we'll make sure that you guys get copies of my book. But the second thing that you do is while you're waiting is this. You don't wait idly. You wait actively. You wait actively. So I would put down the Connect Four. I will put down the cards, right? I would get together a group of people who have genius, who have untapped potential, and I would get those folks together. And look, when I was incarcerated, I developed programs. I would read a book and I would write a curriculum based off the book that I wrote. Present it to education. It says this is what I wanted to be approved by the institution so I can teach it to the population. That's what I did, right? Because I didn't want to wait idly. And so to answer your question again, a little bit more pointedly, number one, we'll see what we can do about getting you the book. But if we can't get that book for you, I will definitely make sure that every person that Jon says, hey, we had X amount of people who were on tonight's call. This ain't for everybody. It's only for the folks who showed up tonight. The folks who wanted to stay in their cell and they wanted to be on their bunk, they out. But we'll make sure that you guys get a copy of my book as well. And if you guys have family members, again, my name should be right here somewhere at the bottom, Lewis L. Reed. You can find me on any social media platform. I'm verified on all my platforms as well. LinkedIn, Twitter. I'll even resurrect a MySpace for those of you who've been down a long time. But you can find me on any social media platform, Lewis L. Reed. Lewis L. Reed.
That is good. Give him a hand for that. Give him a hand for that. So, Lewis, before we go any further, because I know we have a couple of questions in here, can you tell us a little bit about your book? Gloria, what I want you to do is write that down. I want you to get a head count of the people out there. And Gene and Jerry, you get a head count of the people over at Casa Grande, and I'll get a head count of the people in the room. We'll make sure everybody gets it. But tell us about your book.
Yeah, so I wrote a book. The book was released, I believe it was in 2015. I won an award by the I won a national award for it by the Indie Author Legacy Awards for Author of the Year in spiritual category. And interestingly enough, the name of the book is called 9 Steps to Fall Up When You Trip Down. And at the time, I was talking about 9 transferable principles that I learned while I was in prison for people who are on the outside in order to be able to recalibrate their lives. Interestingly enough, I wrote that book during my last 6 months in prison, because I was thinking about what I would tell myself if I was home. So I ran down the street, looked back up the street, or I ran up the street, looked back down the street, saw me coming, and I wanted to write a book from that perspective. And so, yeah, that book, that name of that book is called 9 Steps to Fall Up When You Trip Down.
That is so good. We'll make sure that we get it. We're going to come inside the headquarters at Hope for Prisoners. Tell us your name. Look at it. Look at the camera. What is that question, comment you might have for Lewis Reed?
Hi, Mr. Reed. My name is Nisho, and I wanted to ask you a question, but first I wanted to make a comment. I want to thank you for fighting for the underdog. But what I resonated with was when you said that you believe in the Father, the Son, and the reason that he rose for our life.
Yeah.
How would you tell a radical woman like me that believe in a radical Jesus?
Yeah.
And I still have a dream that I want to own my own nonprofit, but not for me, for the children of the underdog. Mm-hmm. And how could you give me some advice to still fight, even though I'm up against the world? But if God be for me, who can be against me?
I mean, look, you already said it. Right? Like you got faith. You got to activate your faith. If God is for you, then who can be against you? Nobody promised you that you were going to be impervious to the harsh winds of life. I don't know one person who signed a contract when they came out of the womb to say, hey, I'm not going to go through anything in life. Bishop T.D. Jakes told me this. He said, Lewis, anything that I've ever had that was worth anything, I fought hell in order to get it.
That's right.
I can you look. You can ask Jon. You see hope. You see what you think is the finished product of Hope for Prisoners right now. What you don't know on the back end is how he started a concept on a napkin at Dunkin' Donuts, right, with a broken crayon that he probably got from one of his children because he couldn't afford a pen. Everything starts somewhere. Look, let me also tell you this. The word also says, do not despise the day of small beginnings. Don't despise the day of small beginnings. You're looking at something now. I'm looking at adversity. My grandmama used to tell me, right before you get the greatest opportunity of your life, you're always going to get the greatest opposition. Yes. Opposition is a precursor. Opposition function like labor pains of the sort. If you're a mama, I don't know if you're a mama, I don't know if you can relate to this, but all of the mamas, I'm certain that you can relate to this. Right before that baby is coming, the more intense those labor pains, that's a signal that child is on the way. Well, if you're going to birth potential, if you're going to birth something great, you can expect to have great labor pains. Yes.
Hey, man, give him a hand for that. We're going to go back inside Nevada Department of Corrections, Casa Grande. Please step out. Tell us your name and what is that question or comment you might have for Louis Reed.
My name is Ty, and I just want to say thank you for such a eye-opening statement you made. I want to talk about second chances, not only second chances, but third and fourth chances that I think a lot of people deserve. I was talking with my parents on the phone in August, and my brother-in-law had passed. They set up a GoFundMe account, and I think they racked up about $17,500. And right as they were about to pull the money out for the funeral, they realized that somebody had stolen the money. It was rerouted to another account number. My mom telling me on the phone, can you imagine what kind of evil person can possibly do this? And I just sat there on the phone quietly and listen, I couldn't say nothing because that was what I was doing. You know, and as messed up as it sounds, like it was a daily routine. It wasn't like I didn't feel no feelings about it. It was just, it's like a normal thing on my list to do. So now, being in here, you know, trying to get my body right, my mind, my spirit right, and thinking I'm ready for the streets, ready for the life. But the reality of it is, it's so hard to forgive myself. It is like we say we want other people to forgive us, but I mean, no redemption, reconciliation, no reconstruction, or however you say it. It's just not possible for a person if they don't forgive themselves. And I think that's one of the biggest issues, and that's something that I'm working on right now. Every single day I talk to God and just ask for that forgiveness. I mean,
Hey, don't go nowhere. I want you to stay right there. Don't go nowhere. Let me share something with you. Number one, you don't have to keep talking to God and ask for God for forgiveness. You speak one time. Can you put him on give me a split screen a camera operator, please, so I can look into his eyes? Thank you. You don't have to keep talking to God and asking for forgiveness. God has already forgiven you. You ask one time. That's it, one time. You need to forgive yourself. Let me ask you a question. You know how to drive? Okay, you got a license? Okay. If you were to drive, and you were to drive with your eyes in the rearview mirror, from the time that you get in the car to the time that you get to your destination, you never looked out the windshield, you always looked in the rearview mirror, what would happen?
I'll crash.
What do you think happens emotionally and psychologically when you're trying to drive and get ahead in life while you're looking in the rearview mirror?
I don't think I'm gonna get nowhere driving like that.
You're not gonna get anywhere driving like that. If you want to get ahead, if you want to move ahead, occasionally you can look in the rearview mirror, your side view mirror, as you're switching lanes. Right? It's okay to look back, right? To see how far you've come, to see if whether or not you're going to hit anything, to see whether or not anybody's in your blind spot. Your blind spot might represent people that you've been around, certain triggers that might come up, so on and so forth. It's okay. But you can't drive with your eyes in the rearview mirror, man. And so tonight, I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you to get your eyes out of the rearview mirror. Get your eyes out of the rearview mirror and focus on the road that's in front of you. You're going to crash.
That's true.
That is so good. Would you give him a hand for that? Hey, guys, we're coming up to the top of the hour. We have time for one more, and I'm going to ask you to stand up and look at the camera over there to your friends that once upon a time you were right there where those ladies are sitting at, right?
Yeah.
What is that question or comment? You're not going to talk to the ladies. You can talk to Mr. Reed.
No, I'm gonna talk.
All right,
Talk.
go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna say hi though. Is
Yes,
that
of
okay?
course
Okay.
you
Hi
can.
guys. Hi. My name is Christy, and just 2.5 months ago, I was sitting with those girls in there. We need people like you to come on here and speak to us because was I ready? Yes. But was I prepared? No. But I'm in the process. So, girls, come on, get prepared.
That's right. Give her a hand for that. Give her a hand for that. Guys, listen, we are at the top of the hour. Lewis Reed, thank you so very, very much. I'm going to keep you on the short list. I'm going to give you a call tomorrow. So
Okay.
we can put the dots on
Yep.
those books. Can everybody just get up on your feet and give Mr. Reed a gigantic round of applause? Man, thank you so very, very much. It's been awesome and amazing. Now you guys see why I say this guy's one of the greatest voices in our nation when we start talking about the comeback kids. Hey, so just a reminder, Thursday night, Huddle Up in the Park. Men and women inside Nevada Department of Corrections, we are going to bring you out. We're going to be at 3333 West Washington at Lorenzi Park. We're going to be barbecuing. We have dunk tanks. We have jumpy houses and give you an opportunity to spend some time with your family because that's what it's all about. It's about that family reunification. I want to say goodnight to our friends at the Clark County Detention Center, the City of Las Vegas Detention Center, folks joining us around the world on Facebook Live, YouTube, LinkedIn, and inside this room here at the Billy Walters Center for Second Chances.
John-
God bless you. Yes, did you have
John-
something else you want to say?
John, last thing I just want to say is make sure if you want to stay connected with me, we keep the conversation going. Follow me on any social media platform, Lewis L. Reed. Go to Instagram, go to Twitter, go to LinkedIn, go to Facebook. Find me on Lewis L. Reed. I want to hear from you beyond this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Lewis L. Reed on every social media platform that is. We'll certainly be able to do that. Good night, everybody. God bless you, and we will see you Thursday night.